I love Atomos monitors. I've used only Ninja 5s for years, but only recently, out of necessity and laziness, I've started recording onto SD cards in cameras again. Mainly to save space, way smaller files than Ninja 5s recorded to SSD, and so I've started using just monitors for monitoring instead of external recorders again. Shinobi II, this came on my radar and instantly I was interested. Atomos product, familiar stuff, but with the camera controls as well. It happens that I have 5 cameras that are supported, including touch focus, so you can imagine I got excited. First impressions, beautiful looking monitor, well designed and well made, very thin and light. It has got this high-end Atomos vibe going on here. I've plugged it in and then my first impressions have slightly changed. As a monitor, it works. Beautiful 1500 nits daytime viewable touchscreen. Obviously, all the monitoring tools you might ever need, pretty much the same as with my Ninja 5s. Good news so far anyway, there is no slight green cast visible that plagues Ninja 5 screens and no need to calibrate it straight out the box. Bad news is that if you ever want to calibrate it, you will need to have a compatible screen calibrator and Atomos USB to LAN cable, both not cheap. But bear in mind that's something you might never have to worry about. The camera controls work as advertised on my Sony, Lumix and Fujifilm cameras. Touch focus, so you tap the screen to focus on a specific point, but with variations on how it works between the brands of the cameras. It seems that Atomos have fixed the problem for Sony users, as when tapping the screen to focus, you can have the tap point, the focus point, change to the tracking point and track while recording. With Lumix and Fujifilm cameras, touch focus works. You can tap to focus on something, but not the tracking. You can't enable the tracking. Disappointing a little if you don't have a Sony camera, but this was a firmware update fix from the original version, the focus tracking on Sony, so maybe this is coming to other brands of cameras too. The camera controls on the screen give you options to control the shutter speed, but only if your camera hasn't got and it's not set to display shutter angle. I use shutter angle control on my Lumix S5 IIX, but Shinobi II is only displaying the shutter speed and it is grayed out in this instance. You can also control white balance, the aperture and the ISO. Obviously, start, stop recording or take photo from the screen, and camera timecode and camera status info as well. These are the things that make this monitor more desirable and different, but apart from the recording button and maybe the touch focus, none of them that practical in my opinion. This would be great if all these tools had a slider to change these values, like on Monitor Plus app for example. Here you have to tap those little arrows on the side to change the settings. It is okay, but to change aperture or shutter speed on camera, it's actually much faster and more convenient. So imagine filming wide open at f1.8 without any filters and you step outside into bright sunshine. You want to change the aperture to f4, for example. I can do that on camera with the wheels in less than 2 seconds. On here, I have to tap a little arrow 7, 8, 9 times, and sometimes it does nothing when I tap it, it just skips the tap. It just takes too long to do bigger changes in settings. Most likely you will have this mounted on the camera like this, so these settings are easier to change in the camera, on the camera, in my opinion. However, it makes sense if the monitor is off the camera and you are a little bit further away from it, like when filming yourself for example. Then you can tweak the camera settings without getting physically behind the camera. The problem with that is that you will need not only longer HDMI cable, but also longer USB-C cable. To have any camera control, you need to connect the monitor to the camera via USB-C cable. The screen itself is really good and very bright at, let's say, premium 5-inch display. I don't know why they couldn't make it with smaller bezels though. The plastic frame is one thing, but there's also quite wide black area of nothing around the display. Overall, not a problem, but it could look so much slicker without that thing. Only bottom mounting point. Most monitors give you also top or side options. Only HDMI in, no HDMI out. It can be powered by USB-C, great. If you don't want to also control the camera via the monitor, you can use dummy battery to power it from mains, but it would be nice if there was second USB-C just for power delivery or simply DC in socket. SD card slot to load your own LUTs into the monitor and to install firmware updates from. Talking about the LUTs, this is pretty much standard and seen in all current monitors. What Atomos could have made different is to be able to display 2 LUTs at the same time. This way you could load base LUT to make log footage look normal and then add creative stylized look on top of that. Unfortunately, you can display only one LUT at the time. Worth mentioning for those hardcore filmmakers that you do have standard false color as well as ARRI and L zones. Apart from the camera controls and obviously the touch focus, L zones false color could be a game changer for some. All monitoring tools are very simple to navigate and use as well. No guessing, and really there is no need to read the manual. It seems very slow booting up. I very often on the shoots switch the camera and monitor off to save the batteries between takes and then switch everything back on when I'm ready to go, especially when filming all day long events. Around 20 seconds startup time is just too long for using it like this. Frustrating at times and just too slow. Price, it is not cheap. 5-inch monitor, £342 here in UK or $349 in US. This price is not bad though if you take into consideration that it is an Atomos product, built well and made to last. Shame that the camera controls are not better though right now. The thing is that it was all actually worse when the monitor was originally launched, and very quickly they have fixed a lot of issues with firmware updates. Also added support for more cameras. All the niggles or problems that I am talking about could be very easily rectified and fixed very soon. Let's hope so anyway. Right now Shinobi 2 has a very tough competition from Portkeys LH5P and LH7P. I believe both slightly cheaper than this, both offering camera control wirelessly and via USB-C. Also a monitor that I really like, OC G7 Pro, more expensive but it is 7-inch monitor with USB-C camera controls as well and slightly better interface as well. All these monitors offer also more mounting points, HDMI out and function buttons, all things that Shinobi 2 is missing. It doesn't mean that everyone needs any of those functions. I'm sure that for a lot of you this is more than enough, and it is also a brand, high quality brand associated with the professional filmmakers. Choosing a monitor will come down to your own personal preference and your budget. There are cheaper monitors without the camera controls out there, even on Atomos Go for example. If you need to have basic camera controls on the screen, start-stop recording from the screen without fiddling with the buttons on the camera, plus Atomos branded tool, this could be for you. So far they have shown that they are listening, and 2 firmware updates since it was released addressed a lot of initial problems. Let's hope that they will improve it further, especially for all of us who do not use only Sony cameras. I recommend it, but do your research before buying. This is it from me. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below, and I'll see you next time.